Hey guys, it's Cory from CoryBakerFilmmaker.com, and I just saw The Favorite, written by Deborah Davis and Tony McNamara and directed by Yorgos Lanthimos. So I was rushing to try and see this movie before Oscar night. I didn't get a chance to see the whole thing before the show on Sunday, but rather than go to a theater and try and figure out a place to see it, I ended up just buying it at home and watching it at home. So it wasn't Netflix, it wasn't a theater, but I would recommend seeing this movie at home if possible. I mean, I love obviously seeing movies in the theater, but especially with Yorgos Lanthimos movies, there's sort of this feeling of like wanting to take a break. I sort of talked about this with Roma when I had done that it was nice to be able to like sort of stop it halfway through and like, reset, get yourself a drink, go to the bathroom, all that sort of stuff. It's the type of movie that's not best served just sitting there trying to figure it all out in real time. Sometimes I think it's a movie that deserves at least a breather in the middle. On to the movie. Basically, the gist here is that we have Queen Anne, who is in the middle of a war between France and England, and she's in charge, and Lady Sarah Marlborough is her second in command, essentially. The one who helps make all her decisions and leads her life very much. And all of a sudden, Emma Stone, Abigail, comes in, and she is Sarah's cousin, if I remember correctly. And all of a sudden, there's this power struggle and the politics of Abigail trying to get closer to the Queen and Sarah trying to get Abigail away from the Queen, and sort of the palace intrigue that goes along with it. I really enjoyed this flick. It's tough though. So I mean, all the base pieces were there. The script was really good. The acting was really good. Especially just amongst the three female leads here in Olivia Colman, Rachel Weisz, and Emma Stone. They were all very, very good. Production design, cinematography, all this stuff was great. I was a little bit lacking on the sound, to be honest. If you watch the movie, you realize that there's just not the space to get the boom pole in there. And as somebody who does sound on set, I'll tell you that I love it's no thing against lavs, because lavs are easy and it makes it gets a really close sound, but it doesn't give you the same sort of resonance that a boom does. And you could tell that the boom was sacrificed for many of these shots. A lot of headspace, a lot of wide shots, just where you can't, and things where you have 7 feet of space above the actor's head where you just literally can't get the boom in. So, I mean, most of the times when you see a movie, you're going to see a frame sort of like what I got here. Like this is a good medium shot. And you'll see that the top of the frame, where it ends, is right here, like right at the top of my head. Sometimes if I'm up a little bit, I'm getting a little bit of a haircut, which means that it's cut off at the top. But the boom should be right there, close, and enough so that I could hit it if I wanted to. That's sort of your general rule. And while the sound editing was really good and the post team did a remarkable job, I do feel like that there were a lot. So it's a lot of, with Lanthimos and in particular this film, it's a lot of trying to figure out exactly what the purpose of the shots are. So a lot of times if you're seeing a shot from lower down and it's shooting up at somebody, this is, like to demonstrate power. Like I'm lording over you. I'm standing up top. And that shot happened everywhere, all the time, the whole movie, the whole thing. And there was a lot of unusual camera choices that I felt were making a lot of like fisheyes, a lot of things that looked like they just put a GoPro in the corner of the room so that they could get another angle if they wanted to cut to it. A lot of, cameras that weren't intentioned for any particular reason. There was a point where Godolphin and Harley and the Queen and Sarah are all having a conversation about matters of state. And there's just like a camera. It looks like it's sitting on an end table sort of near it. And it's like, I appreciate the artistry at which Yorgos Lanthimos is operating, but I also think that I would have more enjoyment sitting down with Yorgos Lanthimos and talking about why he made certain choices and listening to him talk than the actual choices that he made influenced the film itself. So I think that the best version of the film, I mean, we as writers, as directors, you don't want to go out and tell the whole story. You don't want to be direct about it. You want to be living on the edge a little bit, where you're guiding the viewer in the direction of where you want them to go without hitting them over the head with something. And Yorgos didn't take the time to hit anybody over the head with anything, which is nice. But he also was not on the edge, but far off the edge. So much so that it wasn't entirely clear what was going on as far as the camera as a character in this whole thing goes. It's wonderful to see something that has traditionally been, I mean, this is a period film, so traditionally these things have been very dry, very stodgy, very by the book. This one is way more interesting because they've decided to take unusual tacks in portraying the film. But I think that the cutting back a little bit, just reeling it in a bit, wouldn't have been completely out of line. So the big thing about this movie, I think, is the 3 female leads. Olivia Colman, who won for Best Actress, was very good. It's a lot of times we get movies where we get queens who are, very stodgy and very buttoned up. And this one didn't do that, which I really appreciate because there's been a lot of ridiculous monarchs in the history of the world. And to be able to play one to comic effect was wonderful. And I really dug Olivia Colman's performance. I don't know if it was worthy of Best Actress, and I'm not trying to take anything away from her. I'm really not. I thought that it was a wonderful performance. I think more than anything, this year's crop of Best Actress contenders, there wasn't a real immediate standout, and I think a lot of people wanted to give it to Glenn Close because it's Glenn Close, and she's been there so many times and she hasn't won, and this might be her last real shot at getting a chance to do something that would be worthy of an Academy Award. And it's fine. Olivia Colman was really good. I think Rachel Weisz was my favorite of the 3, if we're going to pick out favorites of the favorite. Emma Stone was really good, though, too. And I know that there's a lot of love-hate that seems to go on with Emma Stone. I personally like her a lot. I think that she does wonderful work. And in things like this where her acting ability is not of the same vein as a Rachel Weisz or an Olivia Colman, so it almost gave you a kind of like you would have with like a basketball team where you got to have your good big man, you have to have your facilitator, you have to have somebody who makes something happen. That's sort of what we had here. We had many different types of actors put into the same thing, and the 3 of them together created a really wonderful team. And I think that's, to me, is the part that really shines through. Just one more on the acting side. Nicholas Hoult, who I've seen in a couple things, but I was quite fascinated by him in this whole movie. He takes the luxury of being in costume and makeup to really put himself into the role. And I think that he sort of embodied something a little bit different than everybody else did. A little bit more posh, a little bit more circumstance to his being there, and we've seen sort of this, lack of a better term, sort of like effeminate mid-century kind of Lord of House of Lords kind of character before, but we haven't quite seen anybody really find the comedy in it without being so forward with the comedy. Like, the comedy was sort of on the back plate of it. It wasn't a hysterically funny role, but it's one of those things that, like, you're amused by him the whole time, and the amusement comes from how funny he can play this role. And I just good job by him too. I he wouldn't have won over Mahershala Ali for Best Supporting, but I wouldn't have been shocked if I had seen him make the cut for that. He was really good in this movie. One last thing I wanted to do below the line, people, and give a special shout out to somebody who wouldn't necessarily get the shout outs on a review like this. Kamai Hassani, hope God I'm saying that name right, did a fantastic job with the music and the score in this thing. So much of score is you're sort of used to the more traditional, like John Williams, who builds this big piece of building music, and it has these moments where, like in the big dramatic scene, the music raises and yada yada yada. This one is way more in tune with what is actually happening on screen. It's way more about complementing each individual moment, and not each individual moment just as like a beat on the page, but sort of like each individual moment as like a line. It's like a look, being able to have a musical cue to throw to, and sort of like this building thing. I mean, it's not like an incredibly complex score. It's very even noted, but it does exactly the job you need it to do for this film. So tip of the cap to Kamai. You know what my favorite is? The leaderboard! This one was not seen in a theater, so just admire this leaderboard for a second. Onto the movie leaderboard. I'm glad that I finally was able to get all the Oscar nominees out of the way. I'm upset that I didn't get a chance to do this before the show, but c'est la vie. It's a complicated film to rate. It really is. It's the type of thing that I would recommend to people in film to see, and probably mostly based off of the discipline in which they tell me, if I meet an actor and they say like, oh, what's a good actor? I'd be like, oh, go check out The Favorite. There are 3 really great, 4 truly incredible actors who are working in this one, who do great jobs. And it's worth seeing. Like, a lot of things, if I was trying to teach a director about like, camera placement and that sort of thing, I would say that this is one worth seeing to decide what you like or do not like, because I think it is a very, it's not polarizing, but it's not right there. It's not textbook either. So if I had to give The Favorite a review or a rating, I'd give it an 8 even. It's a good flick. I'm glad I saw it. I'm glad it's out there in the universe. It's not the type of thing that 5 years from now we'll say, oh man, they really did a great disservice to The Favorite by not giving it Best Picture. It's not quite in that category. It's certainly not Roma, that's for sure. But it's a very lovely little movie, and if you liked other Yorgos films, then I would definitely recommend you check it out. Anyway, that's it for me. If you'd like more, you can go to my website, CoryBakerFilmmaker.com. Facebook.com/Cory Baker Film, or at LegendCB5 on Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat. If you like this review, please give it a thumbs up, share it with some friends. If you have any comments, please leave them down below. I respond to every single comment and would love to respond to yours, but that does it. So, if you don't mind, I would like to go find somebody to challenge my second in command and make her a better person.